and welcome to Beyond the News. I'm your host, MINA SOHAIL. A look at our top stories for tonight. OIC strongly condemns terrorist act by Indian forces. Supreme Court orders 20% reduction in private school fee. Deal reached in overtime to keep Paris Climate Accord alive. French government hopes for Yellow Vest protests to run out of steam. But first, a look at a top story for tonight. 7 civilians were killed and dozens were injured in Indian-occupied Kashmir's Pulwama village on Saturday, after Indian armed forces brutally opened fire on unarmed peaceful crowd. Indian forces say that they fired to kill to disperse an unruly mob, but they ended up killing 7 civilians, shattering 7 families and alienating countless others. One after another, each was rushed to Pulwama district hospitals where they were declared brought dead. According to doctors working at the hospital, all of these civilians had bullet wounds above their waist, meaning that the Indian forces had no intention to frighten the crowd by firing in the air, but to kill innocent civilians. The Indian-occupied Kashmir is now on a security lockdown against the will of the people who came out to protest these killings. The Jammu Kashmir Liberation Front and the Joint Resistance Leadership both strongly condemned the arrest of senior Kashmiri leadership who were protesting the killings of the Kashmiri youth. In Srinagar, Indian police and paramilitary soldiers in riot gear and carrying automatic rifles laid steel barricades and coiled razor wire on roads and intersections to cut off neighborhoods in a bid to stop these protests. The ruthless Indian authorities stopped train services and suspended internet on mobile phones in the region. Now, this is a common tactic to make organizing protests more difficult and stop dissemination of protest videos by the Kashmiris. Prime Minister Imran Khan and Foreign Minister Qureshi both condemned the killings and called on the international community to intervene and stop bloodshed. Today, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation also issued a statement unanimously by condemning the killing of innocent Kashmiris. The OIC Secretariat termed this as a terrorist act and further called on the UN Security Council to play its role in ending this conflict according to relevant international resolutions. Now, to talk more about this serious issue, we are joined by Ms. Mushaal Hussein Mullick, Chairperson of Peace and Culture Organization. Thank you for joining us. Ms. Hussain, nearly 10 Kashmiri civilians have been killed by Indian forces, which they term as a military operation. The tragic death toll keeps on increasing and India gets away with it every time. What are your thoughts on this?
Because, it's a battlefield right now. And it's been going on since decades. It's a battle between unarmed, defenseless Kashmiris and the old military doctrine of India that, through military might, through terror, through raping the people, using rape as a weapon of war, pellets, phosphorus shells, you name it, and they're doing all that, maiming, blinding, crippling young generation, because what unnerves India the most is the indigenous narrative of right to self-determination of the Kashmiri people, because Kashmiris are literally, we are challenging them at every front. Even today, this was a landmark protest in living history. Imagine an entire nation coming out in a coffin-clad, wearing coffins, and with a motto that kill us all today, finally, and they're leading and they were marching towards Badami Bagh, the headquarters of the Indian Army, and challenging the Indian Army that their thirst for the Kashmiri blood is so high, then just once and for all, just kill all of us. I mean, right. Every day we're receiving dead bodies. Just imagine the pain we are going through as a nation. We don't even have a right to live nor to die. I mean, freedom comes much later. It's some basic human dignity is also not protected over there. And everybody who was out there on the roads came out with the sentiment that, no matter what, we don't want to live anymore under this brutal occupation. So it's my message to the world even today, because it's an alarming situation that the height of oppression that they're facing through the occupation force of India.
Now, Mr. Sen, India always seems to use peaceful protesters as unruly crowd to justify their strong use of force. Can the spirit of peaceful Kashmiris really be broken by such brutalities, and will Kashmiris still march on for their rights?
They will. We don't have any option, do we? We don't want to live a life of slavery. We are not Indians. We were never a part of India. We want to be given the right to plebiscite, to exercise our right to freedom. which is the right of every human being under the Universal Human Rights Charter. If you go by that, every human being has a right to honor, dignity, and freedom. And that's what we are asking for. But if we are aliens to the world, we don't exist on this planet, then yes, definitely the world can keep a criminal silence and quite conveniently just issue statements, and that's it. So we demand today, as always, that, when will the world wake up and exert and put pressure on India to shun all this violence? First of all, we demand demilitarization and the shunning of the black laws, because these black laws give immunity to the Indian forces to do whatever they want to do with our people and not be persecuted, punished. In fact, they get applauded, they get promoted for that, they get rewards and medals. So is this their policy of Gandhi's India? I mean, if they call it a part of their nation, then is this the way they treat protesters within India? No, they don't. They don't kill them like this when they come out on the roads. So it's a message to that Indian constitution also. It's a violation of that. It's a violation of the United Nations Security Council resolutions that were passed in our favor to give us that right. So it's a violation of every form of human or religious or freedom-loving people around the world. We are being targeted because we are Muslims also, majority. But our struggle is not religious-based. It's based on the sentiment of freedom. But from the Indian mindset, it's coming, they're attacking that. They're attacking the people over there, innocent people. Children are being, even a baby girl was blinded the other day. And this is the biggest mass blinding in living history on people, on a nation, which has never taken place before.
Now, Ms. Hussain, what has been the narrative of leaders like Mehbooba Mufti and Umar Abdullah, who are often complicit in downplaying the role of Indian state in such tragedies?
They're puppets, I mean, they come, sometimes BJP is in power, sometimes Umar Abdullah or Farooq Abdullah, or before that it was Mehbooba Mufti's father, it was Mufti Saeed used to rule, and now some alliance with the BJP, and now governor rules. So whosoever is ruling over there is basically a puppet of the Delhi Sarkar, and they follow their lines. And even after, when the elections take place, the assemblies that are formed, what legislations do they pass over there? Because these are legislative bodies, basically because they want to sell the sentiment of the public, to grab their attention of the public, because it's a thinking amongst the masses. Every person on the road, every person is demanding freedom. So then they start using that language. But the moment they get into power, you know what they do.
Right.
In 2010, it was Umar Abdullah was in power. I was over there. When the insurgents, when there was a lot of wave of violence, hundreds of people got killed in the summers of 2010. There was economic blockade. Pellets were used in some incidents. So when he was not in power and when Mehbooba Mufti was in power, he was saying that, look what she's doing. She's using violence. What's the army doing? So it's their double standard. So one should not believe what they say, because actions speak louder than words.
Right. Then, Ms. Hussain, are you hopeful that this matter will now further be raised by the UN Security Council as well? Can we expect any strong international action against India?
I don't know. I mean, what's stopping the United Nations? Because even the reports, the Human Rights Commissioner has launched a very strong report, which is in depth. It has mentioned all the gross human rights violations that are going on over there, and demanded a commission. India has rejected it. We have a report from the British Parliament also. Now the European Parliament is also starting its official hearings in February, and they'll be collecting evidences. The world is going forward from issuing statements. They have now started reports, but now the next big step must be to stop the genocide. What kind of pressure to be put on Indian army to hold their hands that are trying to kill with the Indian army? They should smash the weapons. They should ask for demilitarization, put pressure on India, and to shun all these black laws. So that's where we need the pressure. We need sanctions on India, defense sanctions, economic sanctions, because this is a humanitarian tragedy. An entire nation is being killed, being butchered daily. And today's call was so heart-wrenching. Seeing those photographs, every person is wearing coffins. They're coffin-clad people walking and marching on the roads. And is this what the world wants, that an entire nation should once and for all die and be wiped out?
Right, right. Mushaal Hussein, thank you so much for being on our show and talking to us. On that note, we take a quick break.